is up, guys? This is Zach from Anglers Escape, and today I want to make a short and sweet video on my top 5 fishing tips. So I've been thinking about this a lot over the last day, and I wanted to put out a video that's pretty high yield to help you catch more fish. So we'll go ahead and start with number 1, which in my opinion is the biggest tip that's helped me the most to catch fish, and that's using Google Maps to find good locations. So about a year ago I started using local maps to just kind of scout out. I'd pull up my address and I'd scout out any area in like a 5 to 10 mile radius that looked like a body of water, and then I'd kind of see if there's any road access, if it was public or private, and I started driving out to these areas and testing them out like after school or work, and I found some excellent fishing spots I never would have found on my own. And you'd be surprised we can find just so close to home. Sometimes there's even little creeks you don't know that are going a half mile away from your house you never knew were there, and they're public land, you can fish on them, and there's pretty good fishing because no one else accesses them. So definitely get on Google Maps and find some new fishing spots. The second thing I want to talk about is trying a lot of different spots. So Google Maps helps you find all these spots, but the way to catch a lot of fish is to try a lot of different locations, because some locations are just duds. There's not many fish there, it's not a good time of year for that body of water, and so you really need to be mixing it up and trying a lot of different locations. And so even on the same lake, you want to be trying different areas of that same lake, or if it's a pond, you want to try one side than the other, maybe the dam or the spillway, and then where a creek comes in. So you want to keep moving around. Generally, I don't stay at the same spot for more than an hour if I haven't caught a fish. And so keep moving, keep trying new spots. And now let's move on to tip number 3. So tip number 3 would be the timing. So timing is huge when fishing. It can be everything. So you might hear about this amazing fishing report at a local lake, and you might go midday and not catch a single fish and be like, man, I was using the exact same baits, lures, everything that they were using in the fishing report, and I caught nothing, and they have a whole stringer full of fish. Well, a lot of that could be due to timing. So sometimes you'll find midday the fish aren't biting, but if you go back at evening, they're biting left and right. Or it could be a morning bite. A good example of this is when I went to Dustin, Florida a few years ago. I spent the whole week there. The first 3 days I was fishing midday and evening, catching nothing. And then finally one morning I woke up at dawn and I started fishing at dawn, and I was catching fish left and right, and I had about an hour and a half window right around dawn where the fish were in the shallow water off the beach and just hammering everything I threw at them left and right. I caught stingrays, I caught ladyfish, I caught all these other interesting like baby sharks and other fish off the beach, but it was only in that dawn period. So it just goes to show how big timing can be. For me also, a lot of ponds around me, I can't catch any fish in midday, especially in the summer when it's so hot. But as soon as it starts getting to dusk or dawn, I can start catching them left and right. And so it's really, timing can make a big difference. So make sure not only to try a lot of different locations, but try a lot of different time periods. All right, guys, tip number 4 is to use a lot of different baits and presentations when fishing. So when I go fishing a new body of water and I'm not even 100% sure what fish I'm gonna catch, I usually bring, if I'm allowed, 3 poles, 2 with 2 different baits and 1 with a lure. So what I'll do, for instance, in most freshwater lakes, if I'm allowed 3 poles, is throw 1 out with minnow, and you guys can look up how to fish a minnow, but usually I fish it under a bobber anywhere from like 5 to 10 feet deep. And then I throw 1 pull out with worm, and now sometimes I just throw this out on the bottom, let it sink down for catfish, or sometimes I'll suspend it a little bit and get panfish or bass. So then I have 2 different baits out with those 2 poles, and they can just sit there and I kind of keep a close eye on them. My 3rd pole is my casting pole that I'll use a lure like an inline spinner or a square billed crankbait or a spinner bait or a jig or something else. And that one I'm actively casting, reeling in, casting, reeling in. So now I have 3 different presentations in the same spot, and this really increases my odds. So tip number 5 for this video is to make a log of all these different scenarios I've talked about. So whenever you catch a fish, note the timing, what bait you are using, and the location. So over the years, I kind of have this little journal slash note. I actually have an online note. I use Evernote, and I can store my fishing locations, what baits worked, what times. And so now I kind of have this whole diary or this backlog of information. So let's say it's June a year later and I haven't been fishing in a while, and it's like, oh, what was I catching last June? And for instance, last year in June, I was catching a lot of nice sized catfish around these mulberry bushes on the Missouri River, because the mulberries, they all hatch or they grow and they drop off into the river around June. So those catfish were hanging under those bushes, and I didn't even know that until one day I was just fishing a whole bunch of different spots, tried that area and was catching them left and right. And then I go back the next year at the same spot around the same time, same baits, and I start catching them again. So once you build up this good diary, this logbook of what baits, what times, and what fish you're catching in the location, then you have this great, excellent resource to go back to for future years. And so these are the best tips to help you catch the most fish or maximize the amount of fish you're going to catch. So I hope you enjoy some of these tips here today, and as always, good luck fishing.